Good afternoon. This is Dr. Norma Thomas with Social Work 541, and we are at week 6. And the subject is community practice, advocacy, and technology. And I will apologize ahead of time because if you hear a dog barking in the background, it's because I am at my daughter's house. So let's start with our week 6 introduction. The objectives for this week are to describe the theory of collective efficacy, to describe techniques of community advocacy, and to apply technological skills for community practice, including social media. So, in terms of our learning resources, first we start with the PowerPoint for this week, and let's go over that quickly, and I encourage you to go over it in more depth. So week 6 examines the skills necessary for effective community work associated with a range of advocacy skills and the use of technology. In terms of efficacy, while the goals of community practice efforts vary, one of the commonly identified purposes is to strengthen a community's ability to work on its own problems, with or without external support, such as a social worker or organization. Social workers go away, but the community has to have the strength to continue to work on its own problems. One way of talking about this is through the term collective efficacy, which is defined as a form of social organization that combines social cohesion and shared expectations for social control. In other words, creating organizational capacity. How do we build collective efficacy? Ways to do that include building and supporting social networks, such as community or neighborhood organizations, positive reinforcement for achievements, building collaborative trust, maximizing opportunities for participation by participants, and eliminating barriers to trust. What's the relationship of collective efficacy to advocacy? So advocacy can be both and either externally provided and or directed by participants themselves. Ultimately, we want the communities we work with to be better advocates for themselves. In other words, we want to enhance their collective efficacy. So what is advocacy? The act of arguing a case on behalf of others. It implies empowerment, which is the ability to self-advocate because although we can give tools for empowerment, people have to empower themselves. For community practice, this means articulation of a position to affect or change policy, legislation, affect or change organizational practices, influence administrators, influence judicial actions, and bring attention to the media about a problem. Why should we do this? So according to Oscar Wilde, agitators are a set of interfering, meddling people who come down to some perfectly contented class of the community and sow seeds of discontent among them. That is the reason why agitators are so absolutely necessary. Without them in our complete state, there would be no advance toward civilization. We advocate on behalf of our clients, whether they be individuals, families, small groups, organizations, or communities, for social change that betters all those members of a community. And so we are sowing the seeds that will create change for the betterment ultimately of society. How do we do this? We define the problem, find an answer, identify a target, create a plan, implement, and then do an evaluation to make sure what we have implemented makes sense and is working. There are a number of directed skills. For legislative advocacy, Writing letters to policymakers, writing legislator briefs, fact sheets, sending emails is another way these days to get to the legislators. In-person contacts, going into the office of your elected officials, testifying at hearings, and then being called upon as an expert for your local legislators to do background research. Skills: learn to work with legislative staff, build relationships with supporters, develop lobbying strategies, learning legislative process rules, customs, building supports, and developing collaboratives. Remember, you elect the officials. They report to their constituents, and so we can't be afraid to seek out their assistance when we need their assistance in our communities. So all of these skills require effective communication and strategy. So you have to know your audience and also know barriers. What's the medium that is most effective? Some people do not read, some don't watch TV, some do not use computers, and not everyone is on Facebook. So using all of those techniques will get to someone. You can't use Facebook exclusively, for example. You can't use flyers exclusively because some people only get their message through social media. So we have to use everything in our toolbox at this point to get the word out. Technology is becoming the medium of choice, especially for younger people. But again, to get your seniors in a population, make sure that you don't exclude them. Use newspapers, use print media, use word of mouth in order to get the word out to all the communities, but make sure you understand how to use the technology. And here are some additional resources. So I encourage you to specifically go back over the PowerPoint so that you know what's being required for this week. There are a number of readings for the week, readings on collective efficacy, on advocacy, and then using social media for advocacy, and a number of supplemental readings. There is a reminder this week. We did go over the reminder last week for the week 6 written activity that is due on your intervention plans. In terms of week 7, just to go over that very quickly, this is also an activity that is done in your groups, whether they be dyads or triads. So for your week 6, you created a community intervention plan that included a press release and a letter to the editor. So now you and your triad partner are each going to write and hopefully send the press release and letter to the editor politician. So you have some information on how to write those releases. It should be no less than 1 double-spaced page. If in the groups that have 3, you can do a press release, you can do a letter to the editor, you can do 2 of one of the other, or 2 of you can collaborate on one of those letters. However you want to do that. Ideally, each of you would do your own, but again, it's 1 press release, 1 letter to the editor that's required for this assignment. So that's your week 6 reminder. Again, go to the major assignments section to take a look at what's required. In terms of your discussion posts for the week, social media is increasingly a critical tool for contemporary advocacy work. So after you complete the readings, go over the PowerPoint, especially the readings on using social media for advocacy. Complete all of the following components for your initial post. First, describe an advocacy or community social problem situation you've been a part of that involves social media, or if none, one you have heard or read about. Then describe the strengths of using social media. And then on the other hand, how could social media have been used more effectively? You're responding to at least one of your classmates. Again, for week 6, so excuse the interruption. We're talking about the major assignment that is due for week 6. We went over that assignment last week, so this is your intervention plan. Your dyads and triads will submit one paper each. If you have any questions about this major assignment, please let me know as quickly as possible. The rubric for what you need to do is here in terms of your community summary, your literature review, and again, your community intervention plan. So if there are any questions for your assignments for week 6, please let me know as quickly as possible, and I look forward to reading your submissions for this week. Thank you.